On today's Locked On Senators, it's game day. The Sens wrap up their first of two back-to-backs this week, taking on the Predators in Nashville.
We'll have a full game day preview for that, and sure, the Senators want to have the memory of a goldfish, but there are some lessons to be learned from that 6-3 loss to the Washington Capitals.
We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 990 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Tuesday, February 27th, and Pilsy, say something nice about the Senators. Last time Ottawa played Nashville, that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start off awesome, Ross, as they allow 3 goals pretty quickly, but they storm all the way back and get the 4-3 overtime win. Now, we can pretty much chalk up this game's going to start with a Nashville goal, as it seems like every single game starts off with the opponent scoring first. But how much of a fight is this team going to have? Because sure, in last night's game, the Washington Capitals get the first goal and the second goal, but the Sens storm back and make it 2-2. And then Washington goes up 4-2, but the Sens quickly get a goal and make it 4-3. So this team had a bit of fight in them, but it was poor play from certain players and god-awful goaltending that ultimately led to the 6-3 win for the Washington Capitals over the Sens.
I find it hard to analyze the game further than the goaltending. And it sucks to say we're a hashtag goalie-friendly show, but how many times when you get a sub-800 save percentage are you going to win games? It's just not going to happen. So the overreaction, I saw TSN, our guy Craig Button, saying, like, it's clear that the way the Sens core is constructed, you can't win. Like, are you talking about the goaltending? Because since the entire core, Shane Pinto included, has been back, the team has found ways to win a lot more than they've lost. And clearly, it's not that they've quit on this team. Otherwise, that 2-0 disadvantage early would have been the end of them. Going down 4-2 going into the second period would have been the end of them. But they kept fighting. They make it 4-3. And then, you allow 2 more back-breaking goals to a guy who was in the AHL last week, lighting up your farm team with a hat trick. Shout out Gatineau's Hendrix Lapierre. But at the same time, like, I just find it hard. There's certain things that resulted in those goals. It wasn't just on the goalies. We were pretty hard on the postcast last night about the pair of Jacob Chychrun and Travis Hamonic together. They just could not get anything done. It was like they were tripping over their own skate laces time in and time out, whether it was errant slap shots from the blue line that went the other way, whether it was awful pinches and leaving your partner out to dry, whether it's just the inability to defend a 2-on-1 where you're taught to take the pass and the Washington Capitals passed twice through the 2-on-1. It may as well have been a 2-on-0. So those are certain situations where the Sens need to be better tonight, lessons that can be learned. But I don't have any grandiose statements about this team based on last night's game, other than the fact that you have to stop the puck to win hockey games. And Washington couldn't get a save either. Yeah. Washington had an .857 save percentage, and Darcy Kemper looked leaky. 2 of the goals were like, ooh, probably want to have that one. So I just don't think the Sens did enough. And I think, and you heard on the postcast, we played the audio from Shane Pinto and Jake Sanderson. And this is a fair mindset because they're not going to throw their goalie under the bus. you need to have more than 21 shots to win a hockey game as well.
Yeah, definitely. For an Ottawa Senators team that averages a lot more shots than that, I don't have it here in front of me, but I'm pretty sure they're among kind of the top teams in shots for per game. You gotta do better than 21, especially up against a Washington Capitals team that isn't exactly stout defensively. They don't really have a lot of shutdown guys on their back end or forwards, so you expect more than that. Ross, do you have their average here?
No, I don't, but I can tell you this. The last time the Senators had under 26 shots, so 25 or less shots in a game before last night's 21, was DJ Smith's last game as head coach when they had 25, and Jacques Martin's first game as head coach when they had 22.
Yeah, you got to do better than that. And they averaged 32.4 shots per game, 8th in the league.
Yeah,
so,
they've only been in the 20s twice under Jacques Martin since that debut. 28 against the Buffalo Sabres on January 11th, and then they also had 28 shots in their 4-1 win in Montreal on the Mother's trip.
And another stat that really popped out to me, Ross, and we talked about this with Mark Mathod on Friday's episode. When the Senators were having success last week, what was the one thing they were doing consistently? Blocking shots. They had a high or mid 20s of blocked shots for all of those wins. Last night, up against Washington Capitals, 7 blocked shots compared to the Capitals' 28. So you mix in a couple more blocks there, and your goalies don't have to deal with those shots, and hopefully you get a better result there. But 7 blocked shots is very low for a team that was doing very, very well at getting in lanes and having the goalies deal with less shots there. So that was another area where I thought the team could have been a little bit better.
And you look at it as well, like a little physicality probably wouldn't have hurt in this game either. I felt like the Senators let their opponent off the hook a lot in this game. And this is probably just kind of like a one-off stat, but the Senators got no physicality from their back end. No hits from Jacob Chikrin, no hits from Jake Sanderson, no hits from Thomas Chabot, no hits from Eric Brandstrom, and one hit from no hits from Travis Hamonic. Like,
what?
I'm pretty sure they got one hit from their entire decor last night. 2,
Wait,
both from JBD.
They have Brandy with 1, but 3 total. It doesn't do much good there.
Yeah, they got Brandy with 1. So there, 3 total. Brandstrom and JBD, the only defenseman that threw a hit. And again, it's not the most perfect stat, but since this audit that they did apparently a couple weeks ago on hits, they've been giving them out to everybody. So for Ottawa to not have many, it is a bit concerning, and it makes you realize how much this team misses Artem Zub. No update on him. We're recording bright and early. It's 9:00 Eastern time right now. So we'll see what happens. The Senators aren't going to skate this morning, but Jacques Martin will speak to the media in a couple hours. So we'll get you that information on Twitter at Sens Central. And this is what happens when I do stats manually. When I checked there was one game where the Ottawa Senators had 25 shots. It was the 3-2 overtime win against the Detroit Red Wings on January 31st, that Shane Pinto overtime game, where they may not have got many shots in overtime, but that was the game where they held the puck for the entirety of it before winning the game. But all in all, and Pilsy mentioned 8th in the league in shots for. They have to get back to that tonight in Nashville, where they'll take on a Predators team, and they're also going to take on time zones. What do I mean by that? We'll discuss next. This is a game day edition of Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Sleeper. Guys, if you want to win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. But to have a chance at winning big, you need to play daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. It's our top choice for all daily fantasy sports, especially when it comes to hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. What I love about the Sleeper app is they've got a group chat so you can let your buddies know you got a big week coming up, and time is money these days, so entries can be made in less than 1 minute. And you're looking for star players, so if we're looking at tonight's game, You probably want to pick up Tommy Novak, Cole Smith, Michael
Luke
McCarron.
Evangelista.
Yeah, Yakov Trenin, all these guys that are household names that are likely going to light the Sens up. Pick goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. You heard me, Sens fans. 100 times payouts on Sleeper. So start paying attention and get your picks right so you can win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Check it out today, guys. It's Sleeper. Our episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. They're a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area. It started off with 3 best friends making a life-changing decision, and they grinded, they worked hard, and their dedication has paid off. They now have 4 stores in the Ottawa area. The Ottawa locations are Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. Mary J's offers the absolute best and newest products in the market with many new additions to the menu every single week. They got whatever you need, whether you are a rookie just looking to dip your toe in and see what things you like or don't like, or you're a seasoned vet and you already know what you want and you want to be in and out of there quick. They got you. Mary J's offers competitive pricing. In fact, they're going to price match any store in Ottawa. So that means you're guaranteed to get the best price around when you hit up a Mary J's. And they got good service, good products, good prices, but you need good service, and they've got it. They got the best customer service around. The friendly bud tenders are always ready to help you out. In fact, Dashi, one of the owners, is a diehard Sens fan. You can usually find him at one of the 4 locations. So go to Mary J's, say what up to Dashi, pick his brain about the Sens, and see all the latest, greatest products that Mary J's has to offer. Check it out today, guys. It's Mary J's Dispensary.
All right, Pillsy, it's game day for the Ottawa Senators. Note the start time. It's an 8 o'clock Eastern game, 7 o'clock Central. And yes, we'll get to what the time zones mean for the Ottawa Senators. But to put a bow on last night's game and really a storyline for the season with these Ottawa Senators, Luke Wells posted on Twitter mentioning that last night against Washington, that was the 10th time this season that the Senators have given up 6 or more goals. That's 10 times in 56 games. Simply unacceptable for a team that has higher aspirations than where they are. Last year, Pilsy, in what was also an average season, I would say, of goaltending for the Ottawa Senators, it happened 6 times in 82 games.
And Ross, I wonder how many times those 6 goals have been allowed in a game where both goalies have played. Probably a good chunk of them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's been a tough stretch. There's no 2 ways around it, and they're making it pretty hard to be a goalie-friendly show. We're trying our best here, but you need to get a bounce-back performance tonight against the Nashville Predators. Again, we don't know who's starting in goal, but what would be your decision?
I don't know. My decision would be holding tryouts at Sensplex, and the best goalie, that's the guy I would fly over to Nashville as quick as possible. I think I might go Korpisalo on this, only for the fact that I'm worried about Forsberg getting injured if he's playing too much here. That would be my only reason why.
Okay, well, let us know in the comments. I'm curious what people think. Who should start in goal for the Ottawa Senators tonight against the Nashville Predators? Let's look at the Ottawa Senators lines, or at least what we think could happen with the Ottawa Senators lines tonight. I have put my asterisks where I need it here. Senators taking on the Nashville Predators. The Senators, that loss, I mean, sucked to see. There's no doubt about that, but it also kind of brought us back to reality here. This is a team that's 7th in the Atlantic Division. Ottawa is 25, 28, and 3 on the season, good for 53 points. And they're going up against the Nashville Predators team that's 32, 25, and 2. And they're currently sitting in a wild card spot in the Western Conference. Ottawa's lineup as it stands last night, Shane Pinto between Brady Tkachuk and Vladimir Tarasenko, easily the best line on the ice for Ottawa in that game. You got Tim Stützle between Mathieu Joseph and Claude Giroux. You've got Josh Norris between Ridley Gregg and Drake Batherson, and Mark Kostelic with Dominic Kubalik and Parker Kelly. That line did absolutely nothing. Hopefully it bounced back for them tonight. On defense, we've got Jake Sanderson with hopefully Artem Zub. I just put the asterisks there. I like how this decor looks a lot better when Artem Zub is in the lineup. That's the hottest take you'll get out of me tonight. That would leave Thomas Chabot with Jacob Bernard-Docker and Jacob Chychrun with Eric Brandstrom. But as luck would have it, I would imagine we see Chychrun with Travis Hamonic again tonight. We just discussed, we're not sure whether it's Anton Forsberg or Eunice Korpisalo, but Pilsy, we are sure that there's got to be some locked on players.
Yes, absolutely. Before I get to my locked on player, I actually thought the pair of Chabot and Brandstrom was decent last night. So if there's no Zub, I wouldn't mind them going back to that. But man, do we need Artem Zub back? So I'm with you. That asterisk is doing a lot of weightlifting, a lot of wishing, a lot of hoping. So let's hope that asterisk brings us Artem Zub back to this lineup. My locked on player for tonight.
Is Artem Zub.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't do that. Whenever I do locked on players for players that aren't sure, it doesn't end up working. So I'm not doing that, Ross. I'm going to go with number 91, Vladimir Tarasenko. This is a Nashville Predators team that he would have seen a lot of playing with St. Louis in the same division, even before the division changes. So he definitely knows this team. And look, trade deadline's around the corner. Vladimir Tarasenko is arguably the Sens' biggest trade piece, if that's the route they're going to go. So I wouldn't mind if he shined things up a little here. And he's playing on what I would say is the most consistent line on this team with Brady Tkachuk and Shane Pinto. So let's see Tarasenko light the lamp here. He is my locked on player.
I like that, Pilsy. I'm going to go with Claude Giroux as my locked on player. He obviously had a huge night the last time they played against the Nashville Predators, getting that game-winning goal in overtime. The following game, he did not have a point, Pilsy. But then since, he had a nice little streak going where he had an 8-game streak with 10 points. Nice. That ended last night. He was -2. And if there's one thing I know about Claude Giroux, it's after a game where he doesn't contribute, he often does. So I'm going to be watching for Claude Giroux tonight. It's been a lot more assists than goals during that 8-game streak, 7 assists, 3 goals. I'm thinking we get a goal or two from Uncle G tonight. So I'm going to be watching him to spark that second line with Tim Stützle and Joseph. So Claude Giroux is my locked on player to watch in tonight's game. I still can't get over how beautiful that shot was that Giroux had, that Ottawa was able to get the win at home and erase that 3-0 deficit. Oh, take me back to those vibes there. Tonight's opponent for the Ottawa Senators is the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators come into this game, as I mentioned, a little bit shocking that they're in a wild card spot, but still, got to give credit to their coaching. You got to give credit to their ability to stick with it and to find ways to win, which is what they've been doing, currently on a 5-game win streak right now. But at home, they struggle, 14-15 at home. No OT losses, 14 wins in 29 home games for the Nashville Predators. They have 66 points on the season, which would not be a playoff team in the East, but would be knocking at the door. Their lines, Ryan O'Reilly at center between Philip Forsberg and Gustav Nyquist. You got Colton Sissons between Yakov Trenin and Cody Glass. You've got Tommy Novak between Mark Jankowski and Luke Evangelista. And you got Michael McCarron between Cole Smith and Kiefer Sherwood. On the back end, Roman Josi and Dante Fabro. You got Ryan McDonough with Luke Shen, Jeremy Lauzon with Anthony Carrier. And in goal, we expect it to be UC Saros. Kevin Lankinen is also there serving as backup. Who's your lookout player, Pills?
Well, just to touch on the goaltending quickly, Lankinen played the last game up against the Anaheim Ducks, so I got to assume we're going to see UC Saros here. UC Saros was the goalie last time these two teams played, so the Sens, they've proven they can beat them here, so we'll see what happens. My lookout player is going to be captain number 59, Roman Josi. This guy continues to have success. I mean, he's been a staple for this team ever since they drafted him back in 2008. And in his last 5 games, he's got 5 points, so he's keeping it rolling. He's second on the team in points, only behind Philip Forsberg. In 59 games, he's got 12 goals, 42 assists, good for 54 points, a +4 rating there. So, anytime you're coming into Nashville, you got to deal with Roman Josi. And he's had success up against the Ottawa Senators, Ross. In 20 career games up against them, he's got 20 points. So a point per game as a defenseman is pretty impressive. Look, I'm looking out for Roman Josi.
Yeah, great call. And he's dazzled in the past against Ottawa. He's always a guy to look out for when he's out there. I'm going to go, and maybe this is, again, an obvious choice, but Philip Forsberg, he's their heartbeat. He's their number one scorer. He's the guy that everything kind of ticks through offensively for him. He's up to 59 points. Look at the goal scoring as well. Ryan O'Reilly has 20 goals. Nobody else has more than 15 except for Philip Forsberg, who has 28 goals so far this season, leads the team. He's an all-star type player, good defensively as well, and he's definitely a guy to keep your eye on when they play against the Ottawa Senators. In his career against Ottawa, he's been pretty good. So hopefully Ottawa can keep him off the board. I remember we had this discussion last time, eh? He's got 1 goal in 14 games against Ottawa. Remember? We were like, don't poke the bear. That's why I was trying to lead into it like that. I was going to see if I got a facial expression out of you, but you were out to lunch on that one. And hopefully Philip Forsberg is out to dinner instead of coming to tonight's game. Now, he does have 9 assists, so he has 10 points in 14 games, but there's only one other team that Philip Forsberg has 1 goal against. He has multiple goals against every other team in the league, except for Ottawa in 14 games and Pittsburgh in 16 games. So there you have it. A little Philip Forsberg stat for you. On the other side, we will get to some stats that, well, some are pertinent for tonight and some are season-long debacles. Why can't the Sens win outside of the Eastern time zone? And what has caused this change for the Nashville Predators and how they're playing winning hockey of late? That's all coming up next, plus a little check-in on the rumor mill as we are now 9 days away from the NHL trade deadline. That's all next. It's a game day edition of Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Camino Consulting. How would you like to get to know someone better in 1 hour than you would in an entire year? Understanding one another better prevents small misunderstandings from becoming big, ongoing fights. After providing more than 20 years of service to small and mid-sized businesses, helping management groups navigate conflict and onboarding new employees, Camino is offering a digital seminar for families and couples. Did your Valentine's Day gift of tickets to the game not go over as well as you'd hoped? Well, you can get the couples and family online seminar for 25% off for the month of February using the discount code Locked On. Again, that is discount code Locked On for 25% off for the rest of the month at www.caminoconsulting.ca, or simply mention Locked On when reaching out for a business seminar, and you're going to receive the first 5 profiles free. Check it out today, guys. Camino Consulting.
All right, Pilsy, here we are flushing the goldfish in the toilet. That would be last night's 6-3 loss to the Washington Capitals. It's a new day. It's a new dawn, and the Senators are taking on the Predators. At least they can put in their mind that they've beaten this team already this season in Ottawa and not so long ago. So this is the first time that we've double dipped on Twitter at Sens Central asking, who's your favorite Ottawa Senator that also played for the Nashville Predators? Our guy, Nick Spence, he's been doing full lineup. So it's kind of a great reference point because I like people replying with photos. I like seeing. I'm a visual learner. But Nick Spence goes and does entire lineups, and you can make a pretty good one with the Sens and Preds team and a lot of center depth, like just centers, Radek Bonk, Matt Duchene, Kyle Turris, David Legwand, Mike Fisher. All those guys played for both teams. You got Patty Eaves, Brian McGrattan, you've got Austin Watson, Anton Volchenkov on the back end with Mark Borowiecki, Jason York, Eric Branson. and your guy in goal, Pilsy, Magnus Hellberg, who would be your choice for best Senator that also played, or favorite Senator, not best, that also played for the Nashville Predators?
For me, it's between 3 players: Duchesne, Turris, and Boro.
Okay, that's
Yep.
good. I like that. For me, it's Anton Volchenkov's number 1, but I got to give some love to Kyle Turris as well. Gold chain gang, we appreciate that. And those playoff OT winners, I mean, that's the type of thing that makes you a legend and keeps your name going well beyond the time that you put on the jersey. So lots of great options there. Go have your say on Twitter at Sens Central. Billsy, some would say we buried the lead. I would just say we're looking for good vibes on a Tuesday at the end of February. How are the Senators 0-10-0 outside the Eastern time zone, or should I say west of the Eastern time zone this season? Because yes, I know they were 2-0 in Europe.
Wait, before we get to that though, it's kind of funny when you're talking about the Sens Preds connection, because when the Senators got Duchesne, that's who the Predators ultimately wanted, but they liked Turris too, so they end up getting Turris in that 3-way deal, and then they're kind of, Turris isn't working out for them, so they're like, okay, we're finally going to get Duchesne. They get Duchesne. Now both of those players have been bought out, and the Nashville Predators are going to be paying for both of those guys for the rest of the 2020s here, at least Duchesne, and then Turris for quite a while. So kind of crazy that they were so sought after, and then it just didn't work out for them.
That is. And when it comes to, I agree, and that's a great point. When it comes to time zones, though, Pilsy, because I'm just filling out the schedule here going forward, and we'll put it on the ticker down below. Like, this is the first of a few outside of the Eastern time zone games coming up, because they come home, they play Arizona on Friday, then they're at Philly on Saturday. Yes, I know that's Eastern time zone.
There you go.
But then it's the daunting California trip.
Well, Ross, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the California trip does not need to be daunting. In fact, the Nashville Predators, remember we talked about this game, they got schooled by the Dallas Stars 9-2 on February 15th. Then they hit the road and they beat St. Louis, so nice bounce back game, 5-2. They beat Vegas, you love seeing that. And then now they're on a 2-game win streak in the middle of their road trip, and they head to California. And what do? They do the full sweep. They beat the Kings 4-1, the Sharks 4-2, and the Ducks 4-2. So that California sweep does not need to be daunting. You can pick up at least 4 out of 6 points up against the Ducks and Sharks. You got to get those wins. I know they had their worst game of the season, as voted by Sens fans on Twitter. Huge majority saying the Ducks loss was the worst game of the season. And then you got to be able to beat the Sharks. And then the LA Kings, they're kind of in a weird spot right now. So at least you can get a good matchup against them. So that California trip, I guess we're looking way into the future here, but doesn't need to be as daunting as sometimes it's made out to be.
And super spin zone is that Ottawa on the Saturday plays at San Jose. It's a 7:00 Eastern start. It's an afternoon game, Pacific time. So maybe the body clocks will go right back.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that'd be great.
But 0-10-0, like that's wild. And it was on, I believe, it wasn't just on 2 0-5 road trips, because they came back and played Buffalo, I think, at the end of one of those. But it's unreal how they haven't been able to string anything together. Not even a single point in 10 games outside of the Eastern time zone. And they're going to have a few tough tests of that here coming up. It starts tonight at 8:00 in Nashville. But man, Senators just have to focus on themselves. Obviously, this is not a conversation in the room. It better not be. They just need to focus on being better, Pilsy. And I think that this is a team where if they play at their best, I think the Senators should win this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought the same for last night's game up against Washington. Now, sure, Washington, that's a team that's fighting for a wild card spot. They're getting close to it. And then the Nashville Predators are fighting to hang on to a wild card spot. So sure, these teams aren't bottom feeders when you look at the standings, but they're not cup contenders either. So there's really no good excuse for losing to these teams. I guess the only good excuse would be when your goaltending is terrible and there's not much you can do there. But At the very least, Ross, I want to see this team start out hot. I'm sick of turning on the Sens game and within moments, the other team has a 1-0 lead and you're on your heels. Because this is a Nashville Predators team that has some good veterans that can shut you down. You're looking at Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, Luke Shen. Like, they can shut it. And then UC Saros. If they get the lead, they can shut it down on you. And that's what I'm nervous about with the Sens tonight.
They've shut it down since they allowed 9 goals. You mentioned to Dallas, right? Like defensively, they've committed. And I guess, I don't know if people have heard that they were supposed to all go see U2 at the Sphere. And after that 9-2 loss, they said, nuh-uh, you guys aren't doing that.
And Ross, that was a big deal. Not, and Elliot Friedman talked about this, not so much about the players, but that was something like the equipment managers and the trainers and all those guys were stoked about. So that was kind of like the coaching staff being like, you let everyone down. Like, this isn't a punishment for you guys. It's a punishment for all of us because of the way you guys played. And they've turned it around. In that 5-game win streak, they've outscored opponents 22-10.
Yeah,
so
they've only allowed 10 goals and 5 in their last 3 games. Like
all on the road. Like, they really figured it out. Now, ironically, Ross, I was thinking back to my last point where if the Preds get the lead, they can shut it down. The Preds had a 3-0 lead up against the Sens, and the Sens stormed all the way back. But I guess I'm going to use a more recent sample and look at this 5-game winning streak. They've been able to shut down these teams. Now, not all of them amazing teams. Kind of middle of the pack, most of them, other than Vegas, but Vegas has a lot of guys out. But still, they're winning the games they need to. They're winning the games on their schedule, and they're going to be looking to bring some success back home. Because that was the other thing that Elliot Friedman talked about, is one of the big reasons they were so upset at that 9-2 loss. It's at home in front of your fans when they haven't had success at home. So this is going to be a bounce back game because they haven't played at home since that game. So they're going to want to show their fans, hey, we're better than what you saw last time you were at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, sometimes though there is that come down when you get your first game back at home after a 5-game road trip. It's also their first of a 5-game homestand. So they're at home for an extended period of time right now. We'll see if Ottawa can take advantage of them early in this game. All right, we'll be back in the postcast after tonight's game. 8:00 start here for Locked On Senators. Or 7 for me. This is going to be just perfect timing. I'll feel like you guys for once. But no, with all that said, Pilsy, I need some final thoughts from you. And I think we've done a good job at keeping it positive today. Like, when it comes to the trade rumors, like, how much do you think that's affecting guys in the room? Because we saw last night's game, there were 20 different teams scouting, and some teams had multiple scouts at the game. Like, do you think players are either aware of that or take that to heart before the game?
Now, I think it's important to note that a bunch of those scouts could have been there scouting Nashville, Washington. There's kind of a lot of buzz going around Anthony Mantha and some other players on that team. So maybe that was it. But I do believe a lot of them, if not most of them, were there looking at the Sens. It's got to play an effect on these guys, especially when you're on a losing team. Like, if you're in the hunt, you're probably thinking, well, they're not going to trade me. They want to keep me so that we can keep things going here and stay in the race. But when you're out of it like this, and you're out of it bad, and it's been years and years and years of this, and there's new management, new ownership, you don't know what's going to happen this trade deadline. They're going to try to put their stamp on this. So it's going to be interesting to see how this affects the Ottawa Senators in the remaining games leading up to the deadline.
I'm excited to stop saying this when it happens, but Steve Staios has never made a move as a GM in the National Hockey League to acquire a player from outside the organization. It's going to tell us a lot about what he thinks this team needs, because we've heard too much smoke, but I truly believe a lot of it is other teams creating the smoke based on the conversations. I do think that Staios, Bonus, and Poulin have done a good job of keeping things in-house. Because a lot of it is based on speculation, like, oh, Chychrun might not be a fit because, oh, I'm hearing this or that from elsewhere. I think the management team has done a pretty good job of keeping it all buttoned up, and we'll see what he does, because they're going to make a trade, even if it's a small one or a big one. Now, the question is, how close are they to just pulling the plug on like a Dominic Kubalik. Just put him on waivers. Like at some point, you kind of have to call a spade here. That line was just, again, awful last night. Like I'd rather have Brian Gibbons out there skating around. Like I'd rather look at the depths of the rebuild.
Brian Gibbons' point per game with the Sens is through the roof.
Okay. I'd rather Max McCormick out there. Okay,
there you go. Nice, love that. Or Zach McEwen, honestly.
Give me another name drop from the depths of the rebuild. Like you want Oscar Lindbergh out there?
Victor Stahlberg, although that's not rebuild.
That's not rebuild. That hurts my feelings too, because if his stick was 3 inches longer, they would have had a breakaway in double overtime in 20.
And a Stanley Cup.
This was good vibes only.
Yeah. Oops. This doesn't contribute to good vibes, Ross, but unfortunately, and I've mentioned this a bunch of times, I think the only deals they'll be doing is moving guys out at the deadline. I don't think the management group is going to reward this team by giving them reinforcements and making a hockey deal this deadline. I don't anticipate that.
Well, time will tell. 9 days away, and we'll have new videos breaking down any potential moves the Ottawa Senators make as soon as possible. We take it very seriously that it is your team every day. I know I threw to you on final thoughts, but then I just hijacked it and I took you on a random trade escapade. What are your final thoughts on today's show?
That's okay, Ross, because I don't have a lot in the chamber. You would think every episode I should anticipate final thoughts and have one loaded up, but 90% of the time I don't, and it's the old Michael Scott. I just start talking and hopefully my sentence figures itself out. So I'm not going to do that this time. I have no final thoughts other than go Sens.
Make a save.
Go Sens.
Go. Make a save.
Yeah, sure.
Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Check out all episodes of Locked On Senators. I was looking back, and a lot of people have been watching our Dave Poulin interview recently. Nice. I find that interesting when I look at the last 48 hours, what videos are viewed, and it's like 2022 or 2023. I always kind of raise an eyebrow, but that catalog's there for a reason. Some things age, other things don't. So go check those out if you want some more content from us here. We also will have the postcast available for you tonight. It's another game day, 2 back-to-backs this week. We've got tonight in Nashville, and then they play Friday at home against Arizona, Saturday in Philadelphia. So lots of Sens hockey coming up here. They've got, math guy, 5 games left before the NHL trade deadline. And they're all back-to-backs because they also play Wednesday, Thursday in Southern California at Anaheim and at LA. So we'll be with you every step of the way. For today, we say goodbye. Have a great day. We'll see you tonight. Thanks for watching or listening. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.